Have you ever really stopped to think about the chicken that laid your breakfast egg? Chances are it wasn't just any old bird. It's more like a piece of high-performance biological technology, engineered over decades for one single purpose. And its story, it's pretty incredible.
So what's with this number? Well, get this. This is the potential number of eggs a single specialized hen can lay in her lifetime, at least according to her genetic blueprint, 467. Just let that sink in for a second. It's a staggering figure that shows just how optimized this animal has become.
You know, the best way to wrap your head around this is to think of this hen like a Formula One car. It has been meticulously designed, obsessively bred for peak performance. It's capable of absolutely incredible output. But, and this is key, only under the highly specific, controlled conditions of the racetrack it was built for.
All right, so who is this F1 racer of the chicken world? Well, let's meet her. We're talking about a specific genetic line called the Dekalb Brown. This bird is a dominant force in major egg markets all across the globe, and it's the star of our story today.
And listen, I'm not making this up. This comes straight from the breeder's own promotional material. Just listen to that language. Well-balanced, predictable, proven profits. These aren't words you use to describe a barnyard animal. They're business terms. This chicken was designed with a very clear commercial goal in mind. So to really get this, we gotta look at the instruction manual, the genetic blueprint. This is what promises perfection. And it wasn't something that just happened overnight. No, this is the result of decades and decades of scientific innovation. Believe it or not, this all kicked off way back in the 1940s. A company that was famous for hybrid corn had a big idea. Why not apply the same principles to chickens? So, through years of research and some really smart acquisitions, like buying up the J.J. Warren Company in '71 for its top-tier brown egg genetics, they refined their lines until they had a global powerhouse.
So what's the secret sauce here? It's a process called hybridization. Now, this isn't about genetic modification in a lab or anything like that. It's actually a super precise, data-driven kind of selective breeding. By crossing different parent lines, breeders can consistently create offspring that are way better than their parents in specific ways, like laying more eggs with much stronger shells.
And wow, this table right here, this is the result. These are the manufacturer's specs, the on-paper promises. A peak production rate of 96%, a livability rate of 93%. And there it is again, that magic number, 467 eggs per hen. This is the blueprint for perfection.
But, and this is a huge but, there's some fine print. It's right there in the management guide. These incredible numbers, this peak performance, they're only possible in one very specific environment. Highly controlled cage systems. Places where the temperature, the light, the feed, everything is managed with absolute precision. This is the racetrack our Formula One car was built for.
Okay, so what happens when the game changes? When the market demands a completely new kind of racetrack? You probably noticed it yourself. Lately, we're all thinking a lot more about where our food comes from. And that consumer awareness has driven a massive shift in the egg aisle. People are asking for eggs from systems that let chickens be chickens, driven by real concerns for animal welfare.
And that demand is why we're seeing more and more of these alternative systems. The two big ones are free-range, where hens live in a barn but can go outside, and organic, which has even stricter rules about how much space they get, what they eat, and so on. These are completely different worlds from the controlled systems the Dekalb Brown was perfected for.
And this is where things get really interesting. This is the moment where that perfect genetic blueprint smacks right into the messy, complicated real world.
So let's go back to our race car, right? What happens when you take that finely tuned, high-performance machine off the pristine track and throw it onto some bumpy, unpredictable country roads? Does it perform the same? Well, a field study from a commercial farm in Brazil gives us a pretty clear answer. Okay, first up, and this one's a real shocker, mortality. The blueprint says we should expect about a 7% mortality rate, but in the field study, in these alternative systems, that number shot up to as high as 25%. That's not just a gap, that's a chasm.
All right, next up, food. How much are these hens eating? The blueprint calls for a super efficient 111 grams of feed a day. But out on the farm, with more space to roam and less controlled temperatures, the hens were eating almost 12% more. They're just burning more energy to live. And for the farmer, that means higher costs.
And the last big difference? A delayed start. The blueprint says these birds should start laying eggs around 20 weeks old, but in reality, it took them up to 26 weeks to really get going. Now, 6 weeks might not sound like a lot, but that delay shortens their productive window, and ultimately that means fewer eggs.
So we've got these big gaps, right? Lower survival, more food, a slower start. But why should we care? What does it all mean for the farmer, for us as consumers, and for the future of food?
Look, the key here isn't to say one system is good and the other is bad. That's not the point at all. It's a much more fascinating story about a fundamental mismatch. We've taken a highly specialized animal, bred for one very specific world, and we've asked it to perform in a completely different one.
And this mismatch has real-world consequences for everyone. It proves that genetics and environment have to be in sync. For farmers, it means higher costs, which might explain why those free-range eggs are more expensive. For us, it means understanding that a label on a carton only tells part of the story. And for the industry, well, it suggests that the next big thing might be breeding a whole new kind of super chicken. Not a Formula One car, but maybe a rugged, all-terrain vehicle built for those country roads.
You know, when you step back, the modern egg-laying hen is an absolute marvel of biological engineering. There's no question about it. And all this data forces us to ask a really fascinating question. As our values about food and farming continue to change, what do we want to engineer this animal to be next? What's the blueprint for the chicken of the future?